That is so fetch.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Kaiya. Today I'm going to be listing out the best metal bands that I have discovered in 2023. The year is over by the time this video comes out, and I'm super excited for 2024. 2023 was a huge year for metal, for tons of bands releasing records, and I'm really interested to see what happens in 2024, what bands are going to be releasing stuff, because I feel like all the metal bands, a lot of artists in general released their like pandemic albums, like they were writing them during the pandemic, recording them all of last year, and then releasing them this year. So these are all of the bands that I have discovered. Some of these names are bands that I have heard of and then finally got a chance to listen to this year. And then some of these are totally brand new to me, that I had never heard of before but discovered this year. Now, I do want to clarify, this only includes bands that I have actually listened to their physical records, okay? This is not bands where I've actually gotten to see them live, because there were several shows I went to this year, got to see some new bands, but I just hadn't had a chance to listen to their physical album. So that's my only clarification. Anyway, let's get into our very first pick, which is Yasuyuki Suzuki, the singer/guitarist. He is known for the bands Barbados and Abigail. A lot of you will probably be familiar with the name Abigail. His other project, Barbados, is a little more underground, both centered around some sort of like black thrash, black heavy metal crossover with like punk vibes, hardcore vibes. I highly recommend that you go and listen to Barbados or Abigail or both, because they're really awesome. I did do a video on Barbados/Yasuyuki Suzuki because he's the main focal point for both bands, and Yasuyuki Suzuki's in like so many other bands that are just wild, crazy, and horny. So I did a whole video on Yasuyuki. It was called The Horniest Man in Metal. I highly recommend again that you watch that. There's just more detail about him. It was a great discovery. I've got pretty much all the Barbados vinyls, and I'm starting to collect the Abigail ones. So great black metal vocalist, and then everything else, like I said, is kind of this like hardcore punk crossover with either like thrash metal or black metal or heavy metal, something along those lines. So this next band is a discovery that I am so happy to have discovered and listened to this year, and that is none other than Nunslaughter. This is a death metal band, a little bit underground, a Hell's Headbangers artist, and I'm obsessed with this band. Red is the Color of Ripping Death is the album that I listened to in its entirety this year, and I'm so glad I did. It's honestly one of the best like current death metal albums that I've listened to in the underground scene. It didn't come out this year. It came out a couple years ago, I think in 2022. But it's definitely made me want to check out the rest of Nunslaughter's discography. I just loved the production on it, the vocals. There's just so many good groovy songs on this record, especially towards like in the middle of the album. There's like 3 or 4 songs that just in a row, just back-to-back bangers, and I'm obsessed with it. Love Nunslaughter, and it was an awesome discovery, but not as awesome as a discovery as Acid Witch. Now, Acid Witch is a psychedelic death doom metal band, and I've actually compared their lead singer, Lassie, I think is his name, to the lead singer of Amorphous. I did do a reaction to Acid Witch and an album review to their debut, Satanic Hallucinations, and dude, that album is just fire. It's not only like the most perfect Halloween vibes, but it's just some of the grooviest, like doomiest, psychedelic Everything is just delicious. I love it. From the branding to the sound of Lassie's voice to just I'm obsessed with it. The interludes are great. The instrumentals are great. I actually got this vinyl for Christmas and I'm just I'm so excited to share it with you. So Acid Witch was an awesome find, and I'm so happy that I finally got to listen to it. The next band is one that pretty much everybody knows. Some people don't like, but this is Type O Negative. Now, yeah, I had never listened to Type O Negative until this year. Many subscribers of mine have been asking me to do a reaction on Type O Negative for a very long time, and I finally got a chance to listen to them. I did do a reaction on my channel and definitely on my Patreon. We did a 5-song discography dive, and I just really enjoyed Type O Negative. I was told that before I reacted to them that I probably wouldn't because they are a little more doomy, but I didn't really get doom vibes. And if you have been watching my channel for a while, you would know that doom is hit or miss for me, which is why I was really shocked to love Acid Witch, but also love Type O Negative. Peter Steele is just an absolute suave vampire. Like he's got a great aura about him, presence about him, and it's such a shame that he's not here with us anymore because he really offered something different in the scene, and he's just such a ladies man. I mean, the dude was like, I don't know. There's something very sexy about him. And I'm not saying that because I want to just like get in his pants, dude. Like, I'm just saying you can't look at Peter Steele and be like, oh yeah, no, he's not good with the ladies. Like, come on. But regardless of that, like, it's just his voice. I think I have something for like the deep vocals in music because I love his voice. I loved how catchy a lot of these songs were. Like I had been sleeping on Type O Negative, girl. So this was a great band to discover this year. If you like gore grind, you will know about Hemorrhage, or hopefully you will. This was a gore grind band that I discovered this year through Hell's Headbangers, and yeah, I really like it. It's a gore grind band from Spain. There's a lot of stuff with their discography that I really enjoy. I've been collecting a lot of the vinyls now, and not only do I like the artwork that they display, but just the vocal work, man. I mean, it's just everything from like the vocal work to the productions to the interludes to the grooves. It's kind of like I don't know. Gore grind is interesting because it's kind of like a mix between, you know, grindcore and like death grind, you know, but Hemorrhage puts a really nice twist on it, and I really enjoy it. It's fun to just like throw on and jam to, or just like have in the background or whatever. Like it's good for any time. So I really enjoy Hemorrhage. I've talked about this other band too in my best and worst metal albums of 2023 ranked video, but this is Horrible Earth. Grindcore band, and dude, Horrible Earth just like blew it out of the park for me in terms of grindcore. I mentioned in that video, and I'll mention it now, is if you're wanting to get into grindcore and a little bit more extreme metal and in that sort of genre and that pocket, Horrible Earth is a really great place to start because it is aggressive, but they give you a lot of breathing room. But this album was just really impressive to me. A lot of interludes and breakdowns that were just fatty and meaty, and it's a fun album. This is a fun band. Next is another Hell's Headbangers release, and this goes to Deceased. Now, Deceased is a death thrash kind of heavy metal crossover band. I've talked about them significantly on my channel in my my live streams, the What I Listened To series, and Deceased is great. Luck of the Corpse was the first album, their debut, that I really got to dive into, and I did do a reaction and a review to that album. And since then, I've been collecting basically their entire discography. There's only been like one flop of an album for me. Well, kind of two. Like the most recent one that I listened to, I don't know why, but I've been getting like James Hetfield vocals, and I don't know why it didn't used to sound like that to me, but I'm just like gonna chalk it up to like emotional or like PMS or something hormonal, and then I'm just hoping that I'll just like snap out of it and it'll get back to normal, because it's only been like two records, but definitely one of those two was like kind of a flop for me. But everything else has been very much a great listen, a really great time. Like I said, it's kind of this death metal crossover, so you're getting a lot of death metal vocals. You get some of the hardcore sounds in the drums and some of the breakdowns, guitar solos, and riffs sound very like thrash metal, heavy metal. There's just a lot of really great moving parts with Deceased, so I definitely suggest that you go check them out. I also mentioned this band in my best and worst ranked video for 2023, and that is Krypta. And Krypta, pretty much second or third best album that I've ever listened to for 2023. But Shades of Sorrow really changed the game for me for like my chick death metal. Krypta is just amazing. Fernanda is amazing. All of those ladies are so awesome, and I am so excited to check out more of their discography and see where their musical careers go after Shades of Sorrow. I have yet to dive into their debut, but I am going to be picking it up here very soon for my next installment of my ABCs of Vinyl series. So I will be getting their debut, and I will be purchasing their second record, Shades of Sorrow. So I was kind of contemplating which vinyl I was going to get. So we'll kind of see. We'll see what they've got, because I really enjoyed Shades of Sorrow. It's a banger. It hit me in places I didn't know I needed to be hit. So got to finally listen to Napalm Death. I had heard of them prior to listening to them this year, and I knew that they were grindcore and kind of one of the first grindcore bands. But I think what was so exciting about finally listening to them was the history behind this band and the genre, and I'm really interested to know more, especially because I finally got to listen to the one and only Repulsion album, who technically is kind of considered like one of the first grindcore bands, because I think that came out in 86. So with Napalm Death releasing Scum in 87, it just really allowed for me to see a clearer, I guess, path to the overall birth of metal and the more extreme sides of metal, because that's like the whole point of my channel. So being able to have that pathway open up for me was really big. And then Scum is fun, and it's a little rough. The production's a little rough, but I like grindcore. I mean, are we really surprised? I don't think so. I like grindcore, and honestly, my favorite song off of that entire record is You Suffer, and it's literally a 1-second song, and I think that's so awesome. But I don't know, maybe it sounds cheesy, but the lyrics for that 1-second song is literally "You suffer, but why?" And for some reason, that's just like really deep to me. I'm like, man, for like a 1-second song, like that's kind of deep. Am I wrong? Like, you suffer, but why? I don't know. That just really, really stuck to me. And so I'm happy with the discovery of Napalm Death. I'm happy with it. So this is a band that I actually got to see live this year. One of the two, actually, that, three. Yeah, there's 3 bands on here that I got to see live this year. So I'll kind of just put them all together. So the 3 bands I got to see live, and like listen to their albums were Incantation, Immolation, and Exhumed. So all three of these bands are effing awesome. Y'all know I posted a picture of me and John, the lead singer for Incantation. That was great. I got to see Immolation and Ross and all of the guys like pretty much up close for that Cattle Decap show. So it was dope. Got to see Exhumed with the Cavalera brothers. It's just been a really great year for metal, for performances and everything. Seeing all three of these bands, it wasn't at the same show. It was 3 separate shows, but yeah, I'm kind of just throwing them all together because their albums are dope. Out of these 3, I would have to say, Immolation and Exhumed are kind of tied. I've been collecting the Exhumed vinyls, which y'all have seen. I have yet to really get too much of Immolation's discography yet, or Incantation. So I do have like, I think between 1 and 3 of their vinyls. Immolation is fire, dude. Like I had seen Immolation last November with Cannibal Corpse, and that was awesome. But actually being able to understand Immolation, where I was at in my metal journey, and understand who I was actually seeing, you know, this year, it changed my whole perspective. And honestly, Immolation is probably one of my favorite death metal bands, and I'm falling in love more and more with Exhumed too. So Incantation, I think I'm warming up to it. I don't love it as much as Immolation, but you know, they're all fire. So for black metal, this year I am putting Behexen as one of the awesome bands that I discovered this year. Now, black metal can be hit or miss for me, just like doom metal. I feel like I have a lot more hits than I do misses. And Behexen is definitely a hit for me, at least their most recent album, The Poisonous Path, which I'm finalizing a video on right now. And The Poisonous Path is not only a absolutely gorgeous looking vinyl, and I'm so excited to show it to you, but 2, it's just a gorgeous record. Production wise, experience wise, I'll explain it a lot more in that video because I don't really want to give away too much, but Behexen really surprised me. And I've heard to react to Behexen, to listen to Behexen for a while, and to be able to experience Finnish black metal was really great. And especially this record. And I do know that their like debut and their second album are a little much more, I guess I should say, raw in sound and in production, and it's much different than The Poisonous Path. I enjoyed The Poisonous Path, and I enjoyed Behexen, so they're on my list. Next up on my list is going to be Deicide / Amon. Now, if you are not familiar with Amon, it is the exact same band, essentially. So Amon is Deicide, but like before they became Deicide. So not that I'm like the expert, but just in case you don't know these things, because I'm definitely still a newbie, but Deicide I discovered this year, and I had heard of them, and yeah, I got to hear their self-titled and then Legion, and I did do a reaction to that, and I think I did a review to their self-titled. I own their self-titled on cassette. I'm waiting to try and get the vinyls for at least both of those records. Now, I did say Legion was extremely aggressive and probably a record I don't really see myself going back to, because I did enjoy Deicide a lot more. They're self-titled, and it took some time to grow on me, and I really like it now. I love Deicide. I love this first album, and I also picked up the demo from Amon. This includes like all of the like old school demos and rehearsal recordings and stuff before they changed their name to Deicide and actually released the self-titled. So that was really awesome to see and to own, and I love the artwork on that vinyl. So this was a great band to discover and kind of jump into, especially because they are such an important part of, the history of death metal, and especially Floridian death metal. Y'all know I'm like so interested in that. So Deicide, A+. If there's one band on my channel that I've listened to that is an absolute troublemaker, I guess, in terms of their record label, it would be Acid Bath. So I did get to finally listen to this band. I had heard about them and actually seen the album cover to When the Kite Stream Pops a while ago. But yeah, there's like some beef there with Rotten Records, and this was very interesting for me to learn and kind of study, and I want to do more research, and I might do a video on it, because honestly, like, Rotten Records, like, preventing Acid Bath from having any of their music like on YouTube or really streaming very much is just odd, especially to hear that Rotten Records like was like just accepted the like streaming of Acid Bath's music within the last like 3 years after the pandemic. Like, if the pandemic had not happened, people literally would not be able to stream Acid Bath. So this is just wild to me. Regardless of that fact, though, like, the actual record When the Kite Stream Pops is probably one of the like weirdest mishmash of genres I have ever heard, and in a very good, impressive way. Like, for some reason, I just get like the vocalist from Tool. I get like definitely some heavy metal guitar work, punk drum work. There's some black metal vibes, and I don't know. The music is all over the place. It doesn't know what it wants to be, and I think that's kind of the beauty of it. So being able to experience Acid Bath for the first time was awesome. I did do a review on my channel, and I did do a reaction to it. It's on my Patreon. I'm only plugging it because obviously with Rotten Records, I didn't feel comfortable putting a reaction on YouTube knowing that they would take it down. So if you're interested in watching the full album reaction, it's just $5 on my Patreon, and you would get access for a whole month. Only plugging it in case you're interested, because it's actually like the only video full album reaction that I'm like just not featuring at all on here. So in terms of heavy metal, I got to finally listen to Metal Church this year. I did a 5-song discography on my Patreon, 5-song discography dive on my Patreon, and then I have jumped into their debut and The Dark, and this is just Metal Church is very, very impressive to me. Their debut is filled with bangers, and The Dark is filled with bangers up until about like the halfway point for me personally. But I just, the grooves, the guitar riffs, the vocals, like everything about Metal Church, at least with the records I've listened to this year, is top notch. So just being able to hear that, to see some of the older music videos that's in my Patreon reaction, it was just great to see such an iconic heavy metal band. And in that experience, I did learn that their lead vocalist had passed away, and that was shocking and just interesting to learn. And part of what's so great about documenting all of these things is I don't know these things going into these bands. I don't know very much, if anything, about most of these bands. So being able to learn the history and discover these things about a band while listening to them is interesting. I don't know. It's just cool to be able to learn those things. But I really enjoyed Metal Church. So this next band is definitely a surprise. I didn't think I was going to like this band as much as I did. And it's Mortician. I finally dove into Mortician this year and really got to listen to them. I've got the vinyls for Hacked Up for Barbecue and Chainsaw Dismemberment. And dude, I also have the original demo with their real drummer. So this is wild. Being able to hear the reason why they don't have a real drummer in their band anymore and they use a drum machine is both very admirable, and like I said, it's just an interesting thing to learn about the history of this band. And I freaking love Mortician, and I didn't think I would and I know it's a particular thing because there are people that are like, oh, they use way too many horror movie samples, or they use the fake drums and whatever. But it's once you realize why they use electronic drums, it makes it more meaningful. And I encourage you to get their demo because it's fire when they have the real drummer. But I love the vocals. I love the grooves. I love everything about this band. And I do love the horror movie samples. It took a minute for me to really enjoy them. And part of me was wow, there's just way too many samples, but I don't mind it. I think it's kind of an experience. And yeah, I'm into Mortician. I like the grindcore. I'm telling you. It's one of my favorite genres. I can't help it. Okay. Following Mortician, I have Queensryche. This was also a really awesome band to finally listen to. Just like Metal Church, I had heard of them before, but Queensryche, I really got to do a full album deep dive into... Yep, there it is. Operation Mindcrime. So I do have Mindcrime. There we go. So I have a whole 4 CD box set. I believe I have the vinyl. I have a CD, another separate CD. I got tons of Queensryche stuff. Thank you, Wicket. But Bubba, I like this Operation Mindcrime record. It's a banger. The whole concept is quite interesting. The vocals are great. Remind me a lot of King Diamond, but in its own way. Queensryche was a great discovery, and I haven't listened to anything else of their discography yet. But Operation Mindcrime really, really stuck with me. Following in the route of heavy metal, thrash metal, I finally got to listen to Savatage this year. Now, I do own basically the entire Savatage discography on vinyl, thanks to one of my Patreon members. And yeah, Savatage is great. I really, really enjoyed their sound. It's very groovy. It's very in the pocket. And it reminded me so much of Queen. And it's almost like a more metal, or a little bit more of a heavy metal version of Queen. Their lead vocalist sounds a lot like Freddie Mercury. And a lot of their albums play around with the same sort of style as a lot of Queen's discographies. These kind of ballads, and there's piano and guitar and a lot of emotion, and they'll have a lot of more intense bits, and then they'll really be able to pull it back and just give you this little acoustic guitar solo, or this little piano interlude. And it's very, very Queen. It reminded me so much of it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it because as much as I like Queen, they can be a little bit hit or miss for me, but Savatage was a great experience all around with many of their records. So I highly encourage you to listen to Savatage if you haven't already. But I highly encourage you to listen to the last band, which is Cattle Decapitation. And now, if you have not listened to Cattle Decapitation yet, go do it. Now, is this the first time I had really listened to Cattle? Yes and no. So the backstory with Cattle and the reason why they're on this list is this was the first time this year that I actually got to listen to the recorded albums from Cattle Decap. So last December, I got to see Cattle in Los Angeles. I have a concert vlog on it. It was an awesome experience. But just like the Immolation Cannibal Corpse show, I didn't really understand too much about what I was listening to, what I was watching. And now that it's like been a year, and I'm really able to see, you know, where I was at back then and all of the music that I've listened to from then to now, I understand Cattle Decap and I understand their placement in kind of this like metal history. And they're great. I mean, clearly I loved the album Death Atlas. I'm slowly making my way through like their later discography, and I prefer the production of their later discography because it is a little more raw in sound, and y'all have heard that my thoughts on Terracite and the production of it. Soul Nostalgia is my favorite song off of that record. Overall, Terracite was kind of disappointing for me, but Death Atlas is awesome, and the ambient vibe that they kind of painted with that record was really, really sweet. Being able to see them live twice now has been awesome. Cattle Decap 2, I just fell in love with Travis Ryan's voice, and being able to be front row to see him this year was really cool. And see his like vocal delivery, how he hits those notes, his gutturals, like his vocal capabilities are just insane. I mean, they're that of like Will Ramos from Lorna Shore. Like they're very comparable. And yeah, I just don't think anybody really does it like Cattle Decap. I think they're kind of in their own lane a little bit, and you might disagree, and that's fair, but personally I think that they just aren't one specific genre. They're kind of a mismatch of a lot of different things, similar to Acid Bath, but definitely not as much. So it's like you can kind of just like generally put Cattle as like death metal, whereas like I have a hard time placing Acid Bath, and that's kind of what's interesting, but that's just me comparing two bands. So Cattle was really awesome to finally like fully dive into this year, and yeah, they're one of my favorite bands. So anyway, y'all, that is going to do it for today's video on the best metal bands that I've discovered this year in 2023. I really hope you enjoyed. What were some bands that you discovered this year for the first time? Let me know down below in the comments. I can't believe 2023 is over. We're now in 2024, and new year, new metal. So what are your predictions for 2024? What do you think is going to happen? This could be kind of a general question, or with metal in general. So I'm curious to see what bands are going to release stuff, because this year, like I said, was so big on releases. So it'll be interesting to see who comes out with something. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for spending time with me today, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.